It's official. The Falcons have cut 12 players before cut down day on Tuesday. 6 on offense, 6 on defense. Welcome in, Falcons fans, to Falcons Today by Chat Sports. My name is Moose. I do apologize for the sound of my vocal cords right now. Our watch party took a little bit more of a hit than I originally intended. But breaking news is breaking news. And what do we know so far? The Falcons roster is down to 77 players. I'm sure you're wondering, 90 men on the roster, 12 cuts, isn't that 78? I'll explain where that extra cut comes in because it's not necessarily a cut. But we will talk about that here coming up in just 1 second. But before we do that, guys, I checked the Chat Sports sub rankings, and I got to be honest with you. We're falling behind. Commander's Report is firmly above us right now at 43,900. So I make a promise to you. Not only am I going to give you daily Atlanta Falcons content, but all I ask is that you hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest and greatest surrounding the Dirty Birds. I'm sure you're wondering, who are the cuts? Let's get into it. Offensively, Matthew Cindric, Ben DiNucci, Elijah Dotson, Nikola Kalinic, Jesse Matthews, and Quincy Skinner Jr. I'm not going to pull your leg at all about this. There's not too many surprises on this list. Most of these I kind of expected to not make the team. But, of course, there are a couple of players on this offensive list that we do at least want to mention. Ben DiNucci, I thought, was really funny. He announced it on, not Instagram, on X, that he was no longer with the Falcons. In fact, he celebrated by getting an airport beer. So he was on his way out of Atlanta and celebrating by drinking an airport beer, which I found kind of funny. Let's talk about Elijah Dotson for a second. A player that had himself a pretty good game against the Dallas Cowboys, but for the most part was not going to find himself on the 53-man roster. There's just way too much talent in this Atlanta Falcons running back room as it is. Bijan Robinson is going to be a top 5 MVP candidate this year. Tyler Algier is the thunder to his lightning. Nathan Carter has clearly earned that RB3 spot with his play so far throughout training camp and the preseason. And then Carlos Washington Jr., I'm not so sure the Atlanta Falcons are ready to give up on quite yet. So these are the 4 running backs that I do believe the Atlanta Falcons are going to go with for their 53-man roster. It just so happens that Elijah Dotson did not play well enough to earn him spot as the RB3 or the RB4. One of the wide receivers that I want to at least briefly mention that a couple of Falcons fans have mentioned in the chat to me, at least below, and that's Jesse Matthews. He only had 3 receptions this entire preseason, so his production was kind of few and far between, especially when you consider the likes of what the Falcons are already doing at the wide receiver position. It was one of the toughest positional groups to make, considering 2 of the wide receivers that still might not make the team, being Chris Blair and Dylan Drummond, who we've mentioned a bunch on this channel. They might not make the team because the wide receivers, as I see it right now, are Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, Kaderil Hodge, Casey Washington, not Casey, and then Jamal Agnew. So those are the 6, in my opinion, that the Falcons are going to end up rolling with. So Jesse Matthews, unfortunately, did not make the cut. So where does that extra cut come in? How did we get down to 77 players and not 78? The Falcons placed offensive lineman Jake Hansen on the injured reserve list. And if you know anything about football, the IR list is designated for a bare minimum of 4 weeks away from the team. That's with a designation to get back onto the team. Well, he does not have a designation. He will miss the entirety of the regular season. There is a possibility that he could get activated and then back on the team in the postseason if the Falcons make it, if the Falcons choose to do so. But right now, that is few and far between. As of right now, Jake Hansen has been put on the IR list, which means he does not count towards the 53-man roster, as I just stated before. He doesn't have a designated return, so he'll miss the entirety of the season. It's unfortunate. You never want to, make light of a guy going on IR, but this is not going to count for the Falcons' 53-man roster, so they will be able to cut back on an extra player. Grade the Falcons' offensive cuts for me. A, B, C, D, or F. When I say grade the cuts, I mean in the way of this. Did the Falcons get it right by cutting the players they should have cut? And if you think they cut all the players they should have, give it an A. If you think they were dead wrong, give it an F. I'm going to give it an A. Like I said, there weren't too many surprises on this list for me. Coming up, the defensive cuts. And spoiler, couple of eye-opening cuts on this list. Maybe not eye-opening in the sense of like, I didn't expect them to get cut, but some bigger names that we have been talking about potentially making the 53-man roster. Now, before I get into that, my friends, I got to tell you about today's episode, which is, of course, sponsored by Prize Picks. It's the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. It's very simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. So like I said, the defensive cuts were eye-opening. Not necessarily because I believe they were surprising in any means, but it is nice to see that this coaching staff is being a little bit picky with their defensive cuts. They're not going to take any prisoners in this in this 53-man roster cut down. Jesus, trying to get words out today is tough for me. Let's go with the defensive cuts. Who were they? Morgan Fox, Lamar Jackson, Caleb Johnson, Nick Kubitz, Ronnie Perkins, and Josh Thompson. A couple of names on this list that I do want to address for you. Let's start with Josh Thompson. He got thrown around like a rag doll against the Cowboys. Multiple times getting blown over by offensive linemen that were either pulling or coming on a crossing routes or blocking upfield. He just got tossed around, back and forth. And it just kind of looked like he just kept getting bodied over and over and over again. And unfortunately, if you can't stand your ground, that's probably grounds for you getting cut. He just did not play well enough, and clearly, in a physical aspect, was just getting tossed around by the Dallas Cowboys second and third stringers. Let's talk about the main cut focus, though. That was kind of like a dishonorable mention, if you will. Lamar Jackson and Morgan Fox are the names that I do want to briefly touch on. Let's start, of course, with Lamar Jackson. And, excuse me, let's start with Morgan Fox. That's my apologies. Here's what the Atlanta Falcons team website had to say about the Morgan Fox cutting, because they believed that this was the most shocking cut. The biggest surprise among the group of defensive linemen is Morgan Fox, who is part of the Falcons' initial signing wave in free agency. Fox is a proven veteran with 120 game appearances across 8 seasons of work in his resume. Still, unlike some of the other experienced players in Atlanta, Fox played in all 3 of the Falcons' preseason games, making just 4 tackles, one of which was for a loss. Translation, he just didn't play well enough. 4 tackles in 3 preseason games with 1 TFL is not nearly good enough, considering the adjustments the Falcons have made to the defensive line. They are planning on making sure that this defensive line is far more stout than it has been in years past. And Morgan Fox just did not play well enough this preseason. It's unfortunate, but it happens all the time. And when you make room for the guys like Jalen Walker and the guys like James Pierce Jr., who, by the way, are edges but do play on the defensive line, Fox, looking at his spot, had to show out in order to make a rotational spot. He did not. He just didn't play well enough. Let's go to Lamar Jackson, because this, I feel like, is a lot of people's first initial thoughts when they see this defensive cut is like, oh my God, we cut Lamar Jackson. No, not the Lamar Jackson, but the Atlanta Falcons Lamar Jackson. I'm going to be completely straight up and transparent with you. He got dunked on this preseason. A bunch. Like busted coverage after busted coverage. If I specifically go back against the Tennessee Titans game, that 2-minute offense that the Titans had at the end of the first half, Lamar Jackson got picked apart that drive. He had like 3 different targets, 3 receptions on him, meaning he was supposed to be in coverage, and it just didn't work out. And his body language right after that was awful. Throwing his arms up in the air, shrugging his shoulders like, whatever, man. It's just not good body language. So, unfortunately, Lamar Jackson not only did not play well enough, but I don't think he was a fit for what this culture was in Atlanta. And speaking of fit, let's look at the cornerback room. Terrell, Hughes, Alford, Bowman. It just wasn't that good. It just wasn't good enough. Ford and Phillips. Now, I talked about Phillips potentially being a cut candidate. However, with the emergence of guys like Natrone Brooks this preseason, there just was not necessarily room for Lamar Jackson on this squad. You get picked apart and dunked on all preseason. Your body language was terrible. The emergence of other players. That's a three-peat recipe for disaster for the likes of Lamar Jackson. And I do want to touch on Natrone Brooks for a second. As much as I've called upon him to get better at tackling, which has definitely been something that he needs to focus on because it's been really bad, his coverage skills this preseason throughout camp and in joint practices has been superb. Far better than the likes of Lamar Jackson. So, Natrone Brooks surviving the first wave of cuts, at least right now. Do you agree with the Falcons' defensive cuts? Yes or no? I think yes. I think the Falcons got this right. Their first initial 12, to me, look correct. But I want to hear from you in the comment section down below. A reminder that we are this close, well, not this close, but closer to getting to the Commanders report at 43,900. They're about to cross 44K. Our goal is to hit 38K here before the season starts. I believe in Falcons fans. I think we can do it. So lock us in for free Falcons content all season long. Until next time, Falcons fans, rise up and be cool.